welcome to the Little Miss Sawtooth Star Quilt Salon. We are on block 4, the Melanie trailer. This week we are going to be making Miss Gabrielle. Isn't she lovely? So I am going to show you a really cool way of making half square triangles. I like making half square triangles in different ways because you never know, especially if you're working with scraps or you're working with yardage, there's a bunch of different kinds of ways to make them so that you can utilize what you have in the best way. For this block, we're going to be using our Quilt in a Day half square triangle ruler. This is my go-to ruler for half square triangles. I never make a half square triangle without this ruler. Let's go make Miss Gabrielle. So this is a pretty easy block. Even though we're dealing with half square triangles, this is a super quick way to make half square triangles. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 strips. We are going to lay them face down on top of each other. You may want to put a few pins in just to hold them in place. You don't have to though, but I'm going to. I'm going to go sew a 1/4 inch from each side on this side and also this side. Here's what that ended up looking like. Before I start cutting this into half square triangles, I'm just going to give it just a little press, just because I like things to be straight and flat when I cut them. So we got our handy dandy half square triangle ruler by Quilt in a Day out. We are going to we're cutting 2.5 inch half square triangles, and we're going to put this dashed line directly on this bottom stitch line. Make sure you leave yourself a little bit of space right here. I'm going to take my rotary cutter. I'm going to cut here, and I'm going to cut here. Okay, now I'm going to do that again, but I'm going to turn my ruler this way, and this time I'm putting my 2.5 inch dash line on this upper stitch line. And as I do that, I'm also going to line up this edge of the ruler flush with the edge of my fabric. So this time I only have to cut 1 line. I'm going to do it again. Line it up and cut. I've got to cut 2 this time. So I'm going to continue doing that until I have 9 half square triangles. Okay, so I've got my 9. And you'll notice that some of these ended up go ahead and cutting those off just because of the way the ruler and the strips of fabric worked out. But we're going to go ahead and do that for all of them. So I'm cutting these little tiny triangles off the edges. And we're going to do that on both sides. So one more time. I just eyeball it. So I'm not doing anything specific. I'm just cutting the corners off. So that's what you're making. You also want to treat these, I always say that they're little precious baby. You don't want to stretch, you don't want to tug, you don't want to pull, you don't want to do any kind of movement on these. When we pressed those 2 pieces together after we sewed them, we already pressed to set our seam, so I'm not going to repeat that here. What I am going to do is open these up, take my finger, I'm going to lightly go across this seam to open it, just really, really lightly. And then I'm going to flip it over and press. And I'm going to do that for these other 8 as well. I am going to throw some starch on these guys and press again. Let's get these in the inner layout. Okay, so I'm going to go and sew this row together, this row together, and this row together. We're going to alternate our seams. So these seams are gonna go this direction. This middle row is going in this direction. And then the last row is going in this direction. So this second row we're gonna flip down onto our 3rd row. We are going to nest our seams. They'll bump up and kiss. I showed you that in video 1. Then we're going to do the same thing with this other seam. And I am going to go sew right across here. So I'm going to press to set my seam, flip it over, and I've already shown you how to press seams open. It's a lot of bulk in this block, so maybe a little bit more difficult. Flip it over, then press again, and I got off right there a little bit. Whoopsie. So we are gonna do the same thing with row 1 that we did with row 2. We're gonna flip this down. We're gonna nest up our seams again and then sew exactly in the same place. All sewn up. Let's press to set our seam. And we're gonna do the same thing with this one. We're gonna open it up, turn it over, press again. Gonna throw some starch on and press. Now we just need to add the rest of the block. So our flying geese, like always, go all the way around. And then the C-squares go in the corner. You already know how to sew this up, so I'm gonna let you do that. We'll meet back over here with a finished block. And there is Miss Gabrielle.